My name's Jonathan Edgecombe. I'm the Director of Infrastructure and Economy at Lithgow City Council. Thank you all for taking the time to meet with us this fine Thursday afternoon. I do want to thank the LEEP team for organising this session today. Jess Gadd, the amazing Jess Gadd, Bruce and Emma Francis, who are here today. And I'd also like to thank Councillor Marnie, who's also in the audience today as well. This event has been organised by this team to shine a light on ways we can effect change together and how we can move towards a different economic future. But some ask, and who haven't been here before, what is the LEEP? It is our emerging economy plan. It is our response to the fact that at some point in the very near future, 42% of the value added to our economy is going to disappear. That is a very scary thought. Back in 2014, we suffered through the closure of the Wellerowang power station and the job losses associated with it, the families that were impacted, the childcare places, healthcare places, all of those associated industries that unfortunately left, and places that unfortunately left our district. And we don't want that to happen again. It's imperative that that doesn't happen again. We do not want Lithgow to become a ghost of its former self. So it's important that we have a long-term economic transition that focuses on what Lithgow is, and we don't lose that identity, but also how can we become adaptive and transformative, build resilience, and become future-focused. That's what the LEAP's all about. We're focused on strategic precinct development, which is Bruce is leading us through that work in his expertise as a placemaker. We're focused on workforce transformation. The team is working on that project collaboratively as a partnership with the University of South Australia. We're all focused on adaptive workforce education. Emma, our resident expert and the first teacher that Lithgow Council's ever engaged, which I'm particularly proud of, is utterly focused on building that capacity and those partnerships with our local schools. I remember when we first started this project and we started thinking about how do we bring public schools, private schools, and independent schools together under one roof to build capacity amongst our students. How's that going to work? We spoke to the local high school principal who had a bit of a similar reaction, and we found that it was going to be really, really difficult. We were able to work through those. We were able to build relationships. We were able to talk with our peers in the public sector across all of our schools, and we were able to strike that common theme of just dedication to the Lithgow community. So we're very proud to say now that all bar one school operates out of this building, building capacity in STEAM education, and that one remaining school has expressed an interest to be part of it in the next semester. And we're also focused on building civic pride. We've had some missteps with our Main Street revitalisation project, but just recently we won quite a substantial sum of money to reinvigorate and run a brand new event in our Main Street, something that's distinctly Lithgow, that has placemaking and place building woven into it, which is really exciting. So working in partnership with other council staff, we've also commenced initiatives to bring employment land to market. One of the biggest challenges that Lithgow faces is that we're on the doorstep to Sydney, Western Sydney, the 6 million odd people east of the Divide. Yet they bypass us, Bathurst, Orange, Mudgee, and it's just it's a shame. We've got the electrified rail line, the centerpiece of 3 major highways. Why are they bypassing us? And it comes down to land availability. So Bruce, Jess, Martin, and several others, and Sherilyn and Christian to my right here as well, we've been working on an employment land strategy and lodging applications under the Regional Precincts and Partnership Program. I had to write these down because, God, they're long. Regional Economic Development and Community Investment Program to fund our precinct development in areas like health, defence and tourism, which are the key industries supported within the LEAP strategy. We're also advocating on behalf of the Lithgow region to government and industry bodies like the Net Zero Economy Authority and many, many more. So to the speaker series. This event is held bi-monthly here at the Central West Adaptive Skills Hub. We aim to feature speakers on topics relating to Lithgow's economic transition, and today we're very focused on building capacity around the Lithgow transition in the form of placemaking, but also healthcare and what Lithgow needs into the future. Our first speaker will be Rosamund Christie. We're very grateful to welcome her as our first speaker. And earlier today, Rosamund was part of a health dialogue initiated by Lithgow City Council to explore the lived experience and priorities for Lithgow's healthcare practitioners. Rosamund aims to share insights on leadership garnered from more than 20 years' experience in leadership development, during which I'm reliably told that she has clocked an impressive 5,000 hours on executive coaching. Rosamund completed the art and practice of adaptive leadership at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. She holds a Master of Arts, Literature and Psychology from the University of Sydney and delights in weaving literature into her work. Please welcome Rosamund Christie.
Thank you very much, everybody, for inviting me here this afternoon. It fitted in well with the work that Heather invited me to do today and tomorrow around health. But I've been asked this evening to talk about the kind of leadership that is required in complexity. And the work that I do is in this space of what we call adaptive leadership, which is not exactly the adaptive word that you're using for your adaptive skills hub, but it looks particularly at what's required when there are complex issues for which there are no easy answers, and for which making progress is a sign of a measurement of success rather than a solution. So in this work, we know that there is work that it might be simple and it might be very complicated, but there is an answer, there is a solution, and we can apply that. But what happens when we get into this space of complexity, where what we're really trying to do is to move minds and hearts to have really internalize the kind of change that you're talking about. And you can see how very difficult that is. The issues that you're going to be facing coming up over the next few years are central to the changes that are going to be happening globally. So you're kind of, how do I dare say it, at the coalface of it. Seems ironical to use that term. And so in this, we are interested in, first of all, looking at what change means for people. We often hear a kind of a glib comment that people are resistant to change, but we'd like to kind of go deeper than that and say that actually what people are resistant to in change is the loss that comes with change. And that loss can be different, of course, for different people. There's some work by a neuroscientist called David Rock, who looks at loss as being his anagram for it is scarf. But, the first thing that somebody might lose is status. If they've lost a job at a certain level, they lost their place in the community because they've lost their job. The second is certainty. Some people are really attached to certainty, and that in that they are fearful of the lack of certainty about what's coming ahead of them. The A is for autonomy, and some people are very attached to being able to make decisions for themselves, to work quite independently, and that might be taken away. The R is for relatedness, and F is for fairness. Any one person can have any one of those as their kind of priority that they fear losing. And the work of Daniel Kahneman talks about the way in which our aversion to loss is we will protect it with twice as much energy as we will open ourselves to gain. So really respecting what people are losing is a part of the work I would suggest that needs to be done as a part of all the work that you're putting in place to help people through this transition. And understanding that when people are feeling like that, to hear their voices is actually important. Not to close it down, but to allow those voices to be heard. And in our work, we talk about mobilising people in order to take the responsibility off those in authority. So we know that just because people have authority, whether it's positional authority from the work that they do, or that other much more informal authority that comes from how we show up, who we are, our values, our personality, the way we engage, the way we communicate, all of these things are part of our authority, but we know that in that word, we are authorised by other people. So it can equally be deauthorised. And we have to work with that, again, the ambiguity of that in doing this work through transition. So we have a kind of fantasy around leadership, that because somebody has a particular title, they must therefore have all the answers. And dare I say it, politicians, exploit that to a large degree and kind of present themselves as the saviour. And it flows down so that we think that that person who has the most authority must have the answers. And I know from the work that I do, particularly people who become CEOs for the first time, they'll say to me, I woke up this morning with the title of CEO, but I didn't wake up with 1 ounce more wisdom than I had when I went to sleep last night. And it's true. And yet we have this fantasy that people are going to have the answers for us. And how that can translate into, if we go along with that, is that we get blamed when we don't have the answer. So we're trying to work away from a model where we pretend we have all the answers to a model where we're able to mobilise people to have voices in complex issues for which there is no easy solution. My own interest in this work of adaptive leadership that comes from Ronald Heifetz at the Kennedy School of Government, as Jonathan said, was that the title of his first book was Leadership Without Easy Answers. And I found that so compelling, because I'm sick and tired of hearing, if you just have to do these 15 things, or you have these 10 principles, or these 14 behaviours, you too will be a great leader. And it's an activity. It's an activity we do within the context of the work that is required of us. And to be able to exercise leadership when required, exercise influence for improving the outcomes for people, is what's required, as opposed to, the presumption that we're always going to have the answers. And it's a seduction to have the answers. And I'll share with you that many years ago, we did some work with one of Australia's top banks, and I won't name it, but the Royal Commission will make sense of what I'm about to say, which is that when we would say to people very senior in the bank, when you walk into a room and you have all the authority and there are lots of expectations on you about what you're going to deliver, and you don't have the answer, what do? And very senior people admit and say, I lie, I fudge it, I make it up. Because we have this real expectation and we've all bought into it. So how we actually resile from that in such a way that we don't lose our authority, but we mobilise everybody in the system to be part of the voice of that work. And that means that when we see the factions that might be forming, that we recognise that in factions, the complexity in factions is that people have values and they're holding on to something that is important to them. And it might be a loyalty, it might be a value system, but every part of the kind of the factions that form are only doing that because they care. And it's useful, I think, to use a kind of provocative word like factions to arrive at that understanding that there will be multiple perspectives. What we want to really try and do is diminish the polarisation that we're seeing everywhere globally, that when we look at polarities, how can we hold the and of these two positions? Or how do we hold the multiple perspectives so that they have a voice? And, this isn't easy work, but it is the work of leadership when you're going through the kind of transition that you're looking at into the future. And I've read this document and I'm really impressed by the work that's being done. But just your point, Jonathan, that when you brought the schools together, there was an immediate thought that they wouldn't talk to each other. But actually, once you do this and bring people together and accept that they're going to have multiple and different perspectives and respect that they're going to be holding on to something that's really important and dear to them, and holding the and in that is the work of leadership at this level. So I am mindful that I was just given 10 minutes this afternoon. So I just want to finish by saying that I think an expression that I really adhere to at the moment and enjoy is the notion of the alchemy of connection. What can come out of that notion of alchemy being something that is out of things that you never thought could kind of work together for something better. And I think that comes through connection, and that's something that a small community has like no other, that opportunity for connection. So bringing in the voices, and particularly the voices of resistance, particularly the voices of dissent and the no in the group, and amplify those voices. Let them be heard. And when a decision is made and people are still in that resistance to the decision, for all those complex reasons that I talked about, sometimes it can be useful just to say, look, we've made the decision and we're not going back on it, but what do you need to come along with this decision? And very often people will give you an answer that is very achievable, and it allows them to feel that they're still being heard, that they have a responsibility and an importance in the kind of changes that are happening in a community like this. So I'm not here to kind of teach anybody how to suck eggs when it comes to leadership, that's for sure. But I do think that really engaging with that sense of in complexity, no one person is going to have the answer, least of all the person with the most authority. And so that something different has to happen in that space. So thank you.